Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm your host, Michelle Marchant Johnson with Love Life Coaching, and I am truly delighted today to welcome a lovely returning guest, and that is the amazing Alison Armstrong. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you, Michelle.
Alison and I were just having a moment reflecting back on some of our previous conversations and when we first met, and I can just share that Alison has been an incredible inspiration for me in my life and in my business. And some of the things that I've learned from Alison have made a huge difference in my communication and my relationship with my husband of now 19 years. And that's been a huge blessing because I had my own long and winding journey to love with a lot of relationships that didn't work out, not getting married until I was almost 44. So, Alison, I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you personally for your work because I know I'm just one of thousands and thousands and millions of people out there who have been touched by your work. And one of the things I admire about Alison, there are many, but one of the things I admire about Alison is I think she has a true gift for looking at the nuances of our humanity, of our relationships, of men and women through a lens that I think very few people have. And I think that's a really unique gift that you have, Alison, because, you know, it's not just like general themes, although there are some of those, but you are able to see things in a way that I think few people can really see. And like there are times that I listen to Alison or I've been in conversation with Alison or in one of her classes where I'm just like stopped in my tracks, like, whoa, like that's like mind-blowing, amazing stuff, right? That can make a world of difference because in my experience now, Alison, in doing this work for the past 15 years, what I've found is that little things, or what we might think are little things, or nuanced things, can make a really big difference. Like the way we communicate, or the way that we share, or the way that we interact can make an enormous difference in our overall experience as human beings and in our relationships. So I thank you for being here, and I want to encourage everyone, if you haven't already, to go deeper with Alison's work because it is like life-changing stuff, and it is such a gift. So I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Where do we begin this time?
So, Alison, what I would love to do, as I was sharing with you, the audience here are mainly women who may have had success in their careers or other areas of life, may not have had the success that they wish for or hope for or desire in terms of relationships, particularly with men. And so a lot of them have been really successful, you know, had the career, and are kind of like going, why can I figure out all these other ways to succeed in life and be successful in other areas, but for whatever reason, this just feels like I keep hitting up against the brick wall. So what I'd love for you to do is share some, you know, and I know there's so many, but pulling from your pool of wisdom and resources, some of the things you've learned about women, about men that can make the biggest difference. Like if you could just endow these women with like, okay, here's some things that can really make a big difference for you. What are some of those things?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to start actually with where you started, but it's a way that men and women are the same.
Okay.
And it has to do with that I hear from both men and women. I'm successful in my business, I'm successful in my career, and none of that works in a romantic relationship. It doesn't carry over. And I don't understand why it doesn't carry over. And I have kind of good news and bad news.
Okay.
Okay. It doesn't carry over because in almost all workplaces, there almost all workplaces are still operating in a paradigm. You could think of it as hierarchical and adversarial. And by hierarchical, meaning there's a keen awareness of who has the power, who has the authority, who has the say so, right? So accountability is completely integrated concept of productivity, right? That in order to succeed, you have to be productive. And in order to be productive, you need to have trust, you need to have respect, and you need to have accountability. And in in the environment, there's dependency. There's dependency where someone will do something they don't want to do because they're dependent upon the paycheck or the raise, the advancement, the stature, the connection. There's something that they're going to get out of doing what other people want to do, being pleasing to other people, being approved by other people, being even respected by other people. And the paradigm at work used to work at home. Yes, and where there is dependency, it can still seem to work. Now, my passion is partnership.
Right.
My passion is partnership. And we can have partnership in the workplace, but it's like being on another planet. And we can have romantic relationships. We can even raise our children in partnership. We can bring that domain of we're on the same team. We have different accountabilities. We have different jobs here, but we don't treat each other like less than or more than or better than. We don't treat each other that way. And so the good news is the good news
Okay,
is
we'll get the good news first.
here's the good news. The bad news is it's never going to translate. What the good news is what if the success that men and women have had in their careers is not even close to the success they could have? So instead of trying to get what we do at work to translate into we can be successful in romantic relationships, what if we bring partnership to both places and find out we can have results way beyond what we thought was successful?
Yeah, see, this is what I love about you, Alison. Like, who even thinks like that, right? Like, whoa, like, what a question. Like, woo, you just created a whole new possibility there, right?
Yes. And so, and what's funny, Michelle, is because when we started our workshops in 1995, I was completely focused on romantic relationships. I mean, that was my lens. And I think it was the third workshop we ever did. It was the only one that we had a follow-up evening session. We'd been hired privately by a matchmaker. And in the evening session, the women in the workshop were talking about applying the information to their son. Like, I didn't tell you to do that. And another woman started talking about how she applied it in her job and as a manager, and that somebody who everyone failed to supervise effectively could not get this person to do their job. She just applied what she learned in the workshop, went and had a conversation with him, and literally overnight, because he worked overnight but with no supervision, overnight, he produced the result he'd been supposed to be producing for over a year, and nobody could get him to do it.
Wow.
And all she did was take the principle of men play to win. They always play to win. And if you think they're not playing to win, you have misidentified the game, because they are playing to win 100% of the time. If they can't see a way to win, they don't play. And all she had done is gone to this man and said, see this stack? He just arrived for work and she's checking out. See this stack? He's like, yes. If this stack is gone in the morning, you win.
I
I
love it.
do? Yes, you will win. Guess what? In the morning, not a stitch of paper in that stack. It was all done. And it was just this one single thing. Nobody told him how to win. Nobody interacted with him as if he needed to win, how important it is to men to win. Just this little thing, you win. So it was my students who started reporting back all the different contexts that they were applying the information that they learned in the Celebrating Men, Satisfying Women workshop.
Right.
In all these contexts, and that it worked. It worked here. Their 30-year-old son, their 3-year-old son, their 13-year-old son. And it blew my mind. And so understanding just some fundamentals, you're asking me for this, understanding that our brains can be flexible and can be inflexible, and gender hormones have a lot to do with it. But if we were to think of it as like a spectrum, on one end of the spectrum is a completely committed state of mind. It has a specific goal, destination, intention that it's fulfilling. And if women are successful in business, they know this. You have goals, you have intentions, you have plans, you produce them, and they want to apply that to getting married. I want to be married by here, right? And well, it works in business. This is the goal. This by then. What are the action steps? And a committed state of mind is effective for productivity. And a committed state of mind burns a lot of testosterone. And men have 15 to 30 times more testosterone than we do until we get older. And then we switch, right? An open state of mind isn't about productivity. An open state of mind is about connectivity. And when we feel connected is when we feel safe. When we feel connected is when we feel intimate. When we feel connected, then we can feel loved, right? So this open state of mind. And when I'm talking to primarily men who are like business owners, maybe they're kings, maybe
Right.
emperors, right? That like, okay, so when you're in your productive mode, that's hot. We perceive that as strength, and that's awesome. But we will interrupt you in order to try to feel connected because we feel abandoned when you're focused like that. So you will interrupt you to feel connected, and especially with so many people working at home now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you just diminish his ability to be productive. You just ran the train off the track, right? So his reaction to that interruption, where you're like, oh, honey, what? If there's even any reaction at all, because usually the mind screens it out. So if someone really, if you want to get married, that's easy. You can get married. It's manipulative. You can be manipulative. You can be adversarial. You can pretend you like the person. Men and women can get married. But if you want to be married, if you want a union, if you want a partnership, you're on the same team, you feel safe with each other, you feel supported, empowered by the other person, you still like them, no matter how many years it's been, that's one of the most important things, to be liked and to like them. If you want that, then that requires an open state of mind. An open state of being where those connections can happen, because it's in those connections that we're actually related. There's no relationship that exists outside of those instances of being related, being connected, and how are we being, and it's a whole part of my work. But so the good news is, if someone takes on understanding being male, being female, being man, being woman, being masculine, being feminine, being both, switching between the two, if someone takes that on And how do you bring out the best in a person, whether they're in an open state of mind or committed state of mind, that can then be seen. You can actually see. Like a woman in an open state of mind, she wastes energy. When she walks, her hips move side to side. When she's in a committed state of mind, there's no hips moving. There's just legs propelled forward very quickly, right? And oh, look, her hips are swaying. Oh, she's in an open state of mind. Hi, honey. I would love to connect with you. I'd love to connect with you. No hips moving? Get out of my way. Just get out of But when we can start to see these things, whether it's in a man or a woman or a young person, there's so much we stop taking personally, which is the opposite of what we normally do. When a man is talking to a woman and she's distracted by the water boiling over and goes to fix it, he thinks she doesn't care about him. He was talking about something important and she walked away. He doesn't even notice what she walked away to do. You're just not here, right? And when a man is focused and he's getting it done and he has that reaction to being interrupted, we're so hurt. And we don't know how to, and we get mad at being hurt. And then if the hurts aren't healed, there goes intimacy. You can still have sex, but there will be no intimacy. And eventually the sex will be avoided as well. Okay, that's a short version of one part. What do people need to know? Most of it's not personal. Anytime you think it has something to do with you, they don't love me, they don't care about me, they don't respect me, they don't honor me, they don't, probably not. Probably not. And can I tell you a funny story?
Yes, please.
This happened.
Before you start, though, I just want to say that right there, most of it is not personal. That's like a writer downer. That's like so big. Like if we got that, and like if we just got that alone would be like so transformative.
Yes.
I just wanted to put a big explanation point and go bing 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 bing. This is a pay attention to here, right here.
Yeah. And even when someone's frustrated, which is very hard for women to be around frustrated men, just to say, are you mad at me? And they're like, no. But they don't go, oh no, honey. They go, no. And they seem mad at you when they're saying, I'm not mad at you. Right. We can switch ways of being very quickly. We can be like, oh, sweetie. That's what estrogen does to our brains. We can switch ways of thinking and ways of being so quickly until we get older and the estrogen run out and our brains reconfigure and we get more focused. And then we're like, wait a second, you changed the topic too fast. You lost me. Hold on. Yeah. So can I tell you this funny thing?
Yes, please.
This just happened to me. Just happened Sunday. So 2 days ago. I went to my house which has been lived in by dear relatives and a woman and a man in their 20s. He might be in early 30s now. And there's a plumbing problem and the plumbing's got to get fixed. And I haven't been in my house for 3.5 years. And I come in the house and there's fly strips hanging in front of all the windows and they're black with flies.
Oh,
and there's all these flies. And I like, what's with the flies? And they're like, it's been like this since spring. We thought it would die down and it's just getting worse. And I mean, I've never seen so many flies in my life.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, okay, wait a second. And I used to have flies, not nearly as many, but then I had all the windows replaced and I had no more flies. None, zero. So I knew to check to see were the windows closed. And it turns out they thought the screens would keep out flies. And all the
Ah,
windows, every window was open. Even just like, because I had these snazzy windows put in. And so I like windows that double hung windows. You can clean them. They do all these interesting things. I love them. But it was just kind of hard to push it all the way to the top. And so they couldn't push the bottom to the bottom, and so they couldn't lock it. So everything was just a little bit. I think there's like 50 windows in my house. I found three. I found three that were closed, like closed and sealed, like sealed out. So I'm trying to figure out what to do about these flies. And my son-in-law is saying this probably isn't the most important thing right now, but I want to tell you what's happened with the plumbing. And I'm like, okay, all right. And he starts to talk, and I see another window I gotta check, and another window I gotta check. And I'm fixing this window and closing that window and closing. Okay, we got those windows. Now where are the other windows? And he's like, and he said, "You're not listening to me. You're disrespecting me."
oh,
And I'm actually, he yelled. He
oh,
yelled at me.
wow.
And thank goodness I've done so much release work. I've so much understanding. There's so much that's just perfectly clear. And I said, actually, you're completely misunderstanding what's happening here. He's like, what? What are you talking about? So there I am standing in my kitchen with this instant teaching on single focus, diffuse awareness. I walk in, I'm completely distracted by the flies. And I said, "And you expect me to listen to you?" And he goes, "Yes, because I'm talking." Which years
In
ago,
the meantime, you have Lord of the Flies here, right?
exactly, exactly. And I remember asking Greg, you remember my late husband, I asked him, once I said, "Honey, when you start talking, do you expect me to start listening?" And he looked at me and goes, "Well, yes, I'm talking." Oh my gosh, this is why men don't ask for a time to talk. Now, women don't ask for a time to talk because you think you could do anything else and talk.
Right.
I can listen and close all the windows in a three-story house.
Right.
Just this slight, just committed state of mind, open state of mind, and the expectation that the other person is in the state of mind that we are.
Hmm.
Right? Now, I didn't lecture him on any sentence you start with this, probably not the most important thing to talk about, is not a way to get me to listen.
Yeah.
Then let's just stop there and talk about the most important thing.
Right. That's a great story and
I
a great illustration of so many things. So many things. And one word that you said that caught my attention just now too was expectation, right? This is a whole nother thing
mm,
where we all come into our relationships, into our communication with expectations of how it's supposed to go, how it should go, right? This whole, oh,
yeah, and I love that you bring it up because it's probably in the top 10, anywhere from mischief makers to disasters. And we can tell there's an expectation involved when we are using the word should or thinking the word should. That shouldn't happen. That should have happened. That should happen. I shouldn't have to tell you to have that happen. And one of the biggest mistakes that women make, and men with lower levels of testosterone will make, but they'll express it differently, is women think that if a person knows how upset they are about an expectation not being met, that that person will work harder to meet it. So when a woman is disappointed, right, or furious about something that should have happened that didn't, or something that should never happen that did, their go-to is to get it into the other person's head. I'm going to tell you how upset I am about this, and you're going to stand there and listen to it. Where do we think we have that, right? And not knowing that to a man, what it means to be honorable is to do the right thing, no matter how they feel. So to do something other than that's congruent with their values, their energy, their time, their resources, do something other than that to appease or mollify someone who's upset, that's disgusting to them. They're disgusted with themselves if they cave. Now, men will only change their behavior in response to a woman being upset if they feel dependent upon her. And men who feel dependent upon us are gross to us. Like, I don't want, no, I'm not going to get naked with you. Like, we're attracted to strength. We're attracted
Right.
to strength. And when they cave into our rampage, we might get what we want, but we lose respect for them. And I did a teleclass many years ago called Using Anger to Get What You Need. And I did it on purpose. I was getting really brave, right? And I did it to attract women who were using anger to get what they need and women who wanted to use anger to get what they need. And the whole teleclass was about how it doesn't work.
Right.
It causes the opposite result that we want. And which is why, as you know, so much of my work about is what is the language and what is the attitude? What is the way of being that goes with the language that communicates effectively with men, with women, with people in that you, with anybody who's not an adversary or a dependent, which life between human beings has been adversaries and dependency for millennia. So we have to break up our compulsion, right? Our instincts are going to go one way or the other. I thought of something else your ladies would like to know.
Okay, do tell.
This is
There's so much here. I'm just loving this. This is so good. This is so good.
well, your question just punched a button. So this is also good news and bad news.
Okay.
And this was something that came through when I started working on the sequel to the Queen's Code. And it boggled my mind. And that is, and I already knew that women scan for strength to look for providers and protectors and people to make babies with, or people to have them be my mentor in some way, provide that. And that men scan for strength in a kind of competitive way. Like, can I beat him? Can I take him? How can I take him? In all kinds of contexts. But then I realized that men are always scanning for strength, but not just as competitors, they're scanning for strengths like a team leader or the leader of the hunt. So they're scanning for strength, and specifically they're scanning for complementary strength. So and the way that one man put it to me, which was just awesome, was they're looking for teammates that will expand their own possibilities in the game. So, yes, so like a Tom Brady was not looking for another quarterback, found Jerry Rice, right? Jerry
Mhm.
Rice changed the possibilities for Tom Brady because there were so many people on the lookout for him and his ability to catch almost any ball that all of a sudden the short game was much more effective because so many defenders were occupied. I mean, that's just one simple example of how it changed everything. Well, what most women don't know is when men are looking for a mate, which is different than looking for sex, which is a whole other legitimate thing, but it gets really confused. But when they're looking for a mate, they're looking for complementary strength. So they're looking for a woman who's smart in ways that they're not smart, who can think things that they can't think, that can solve problems in ways that they can't solve problems, that can shift their ways in being that he can't. And so they're looking for that complementary strength in order to alter the possibilities of their life. And the problem is that at some point after the getting to know you part, and maybe we should spend the rest of our life together, women not knowing she's been picked for complementary strength will criticize him for not having her strengths. Why
Mm.
can't you see that? Why couldn't you have solved that yourself? What were you thinking? Why weren't you thinking what I was thinking? Well, I picked you because I'm never thinking what you're thinking. So,
Right.
yes. So we've been picked for how different we are, and then we pick on them for how not the same they are as us. Instead of instead of admiration, a mutual admiration that you think of things that I would never think of. And because of what it's taken in our culture to overcome what women have been for millennia and to have a chance at equality and being seen and not having a vote instead of being vetoed and all the things that people associate with patriarchy, which, by the way, matriarchy can do the same thing in reverse. It's it's taken so much, and so we're prepared to compete, and we're prepared to prove that we're better than, and that's where it all
And
falls.
you know what? That dynamic happens sometimes in relationships between a woman and a man. Instead of it being a complementary relationship where both people have strengths that come together to expand the possibilities, it becomes like a competition. Like
Well, my mouth is open because you said sometimes. It's almost all the time. It's almost all the
all the
time. And it starts from the
time.
very beginning. And we wonder why we can't find someone to marry. Well, because we keep proving to him, you'd be stupid to marry me. I'm going to criticize you for the rest of your life for not being like me.
Which comes back to what you said earlier at the beginning, which is men always play to win. If he's not going to win, if he's
Yes,
not going
they
to feel
always
like he
play
can
to,
win.
yes, yes. And this competing thing, like in the workplace, back to the thing about maybe we're not nearly as successful as we could be. In the workplace, many women think the way to rise is to prove to others that she's smarter than her boss. Prove to others
Yeah,
she's
how's
smarter,
that going to
then
go?
she'll get the position. Yeah, not knowing that the ethic amongst men is who's got my back, who can I count on, who can I trust. And those people who've proven loyalty, as I rise, I pull them with me. That and to them it makes perfect sense. And we might feel excluded, but we're the one that hasn't proven respect and loyalty. We're the one that's trying to take their job. There's so many movies about this, right? About the person who's conniving versus the person who's on the same team and supporting, and will never make them lose face instead of always make them lose face. Japanese concept, but yeah, have them lose. So much of not even so much of this, all of this is compelled by instinct. It starts with instincts and then it's exacerbated by culture. And in our Smart Singles program, I always paying attention to, well, do you like him?
What a
Do you like
question.
him? Do you like this person? Do you prefer how he is? Do you wish you were more like him? If you have children, would you want your children to be like him? Or is this just a chemical or economic attraction? Or they're going to give you the status that you're looking for in the house you always wanted, but you don't like them and you never expected to like them because your mother didn't like your father.
Hmm.
So, right, there's this perpetuation. But one of the 12 things that make a woman the right person to marry, and men taught me this, and we've talked about this in different ways in the past, is they're looking for that she likes him. She likes me. That's one of the 12 things. Loves
Yeah.
me isn't one of the 12 things.
Yeah.
Likes me. She likes.
Yeah. And like,
Go
that's
ahead.
like a mind-blowing concept sometimes. Like he actually wants someone who likes him. Yeah, he actually wants someone who thinks he's great, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't that like, it seems basic, but a lot of times it's not in the way we instinctually interact.
No.
And yeah, like this, some of this stuff seems like, yeah, why don't we understand that? Why don't we know that? But we don't. We don't.
We,
And is this, Allison, is this one of the reasons why I'm sure you've had, I don't even know how many women say this to you, and I've had so many women say this to me, is that men are intimidated by me. Men can't handle successful women. They can't handle us. Like, they're intimidated by us. They don't want relationships. What am I supposed to do? Like, be less than I am, dim myself down, that kind of thing.
yeah, it's well, there's a legitimate side of it and the attitude that goes back to, why would I sign up for a lifetime to be with someone I can never win with, or I barely ever win with them? Like, why would I subject myself to that? And then there's another side, and I did a program recently called Feels Like Love, Looks Like Math. And it's part of these things I'm creating that I think of as collections. Like dating with distinctions is a collection of a bunch of distinctions that interact with each other. Feels Like Love, Looks Like Math is the combination of the deserving equation, the appreciation equation, and the worth it calculation. And how do they all interact with it? And something for women to know about the deserving equation is that human beings are compelled to equalize, to get as good as we give, to give as good as we get. That we're compelled to do that. And you can actually predict human behavior by the deserving equation and the appreciation equation. And so some women will think that they're not loved because they think they don't deserve to be loved. And they think that the way to get what they want and need is to think they deserve it and find someone who also thinks they deserve it, someone who agrees that they deserve it. So if I think this need is legitimate and he thinks this need is legitimate, everything's taken care of. Well, no, it doesn't work like that. You can think you deserve to be treated a certain way, and a man can agree you deserve to be treated a certain way. So you should be with someone who can do that for you. Like, as a matter of honor, I can't give you what you need. You deserve to be with someone who can give you what you need. Now, this gets a whole lot of other problems because human beings, men and women, we both project onto someone what they need. And men figure out what women need by what they've decided all women need, and by what you already have, by what you've experienced in the past, and anything you just talk about a lot. They think you need that. And then they check and see,
Hmm.
can they afford to give it to you? And they may, and this is where the worth it calculation comes in, they may be able to give it to you, but it's not worth it. It's not worth the time and energy and resources to do what it takes to give that to you. So they can do it. They're not going to do it. They may even feel guilty for not doing it because they think you deserve it. But it still doesn't cause them to take the actions that have us feel loved. This is what I was breaking down. It'll come out in a few weeks. People can buy the replay now, but they'll get the edited course in a few weeks. And so there's all these things that we unconsciously think should work. I deserve a raise. I deserve a raise. And this is where it breaks down. I was behind a man in line who was getting a receipt that was not detailed. And he said something to me about that his company required a detailed receipt for reimbursement, and that he never gave them to them. They're a $27 billion company. They can afford to buy my booze. And then I ran into him a little bit later, and he said, they don't pay me enough. Well, that's a currency of appreciation, how much you're paid. So appreciation equation, he's not appreciated enough. So he's going to take to equalize it. What does he take? He takes booze.
Without a receipt.
Yeah, he doesn't get a detailed receipt. It's just built into this was dinner and you're going to pay for it. But there's so many things that we're compelled by that we think just should work. Just like we think what works in being successful in the workplace should work in a romantic relationship. But when romantic relationships are based on dependency, they're yucky. And without the dependency, nobody will put up with what they used to put up with. Your employees will put up with things that your boyfriend will not, that your wife will not.
Right.
It's not worth it.
Right. Right. So with women who are successful, just kind of like coming back around to this, one piece is it's not going to work well, in the workplace is not necessarily going to work if you're trying to take your boss's job by making yourself try to look better or him look bad, or trying to compete directly with him. It's not going to work like that. It's not going to work well in a romantic relationship if you're in a competitive kind of energy instead of a collaborative and partnership kind of like playing on and recognizing and appreciating each other's strengths. I'm just kind of like trying to make this really tangible for people. Our expectations, or the way we think it should be, first of all, a lot of times we don't even know what those things are until we bump up against them. And then we're like, this is how it should be. And we certainly can't expect that someone else is going to know what all the expectations or shoulds or the ways we think should be going, we think things should be going. They can't know that. We haven't even known that about ourselves. I mean, I've experienced that so many times in my own marriage where I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing for me. And then all of a sudden I'm like, that's a thing for me. And I didn't even know it. So how could I have shared that with my husband until I like bumped up against it, right? And then I'm like, I'm thinking like, he should know that. I'm like, how should he know that? I didn't even know that was a thing for me.
Yes. Oh my gosh, there's so many things. And part of when you ask that question, okay, what are the basic things they should know? I have spent the last 12 weeks rewatching and updating what I recorded in 2020 called Lux, which stands for Liberation, Understanding Extraordinary Relationships. And it's where I encourage everyone to start now. Just it just breaks down what's really going on and what you can really control and what shapes everything. And then Understanding Women, which I recommend both women and men do, especially that women do it before they do Understanding Men, because the danger, which we found out after a couple decades of people doing Understanding Men first, is that our compulsion to please, which comes from being the weaker, smaller and weaker sex, when women find out what works for men, they'll adapt to it and betray themselves. So they'll contort and suppress and pretend to be something they're not. And Lux is the beginning of honor yourself first or all is lost. And it teaches a process of honoring that you first apply to yourself before you apply to anybody else. And then Understanding Women, going into it, having women like, okay, you have a good reason for everything you do. And don't let yourself be invalidated for this. You want the curves and the softness and all the things that are female that you love. It's going to go with something that will seem to you like scattered, emotionally indulgent, and disrespectful. What if it isn't? What if it's a natural outcome of how this kind of brain was put together? And then now I'm towards the end of Understanding Men. We have the last session tomorrow night. I recorded this 10 years ago, and I'm watching these videos astonished at the volume of the information that we packed into it, how it's still completely applicable, and I'm into more nuances beyond that. And it's when our expectations aren't met, guess what we do? We take that personally too. He would have done what he should have done if he loved me, if he cared about me, if he thought I was beautiful, if he respected me, if he thought I deserved that. But that isn't where any of that comes from. You got me all wound up today, Michelle. Not that it's hard to do.
I love how you just walked us through what you recommend as the order of things now. And I love that honoring yourself first is a foundational piece. I think that's so important. And one of the things that I think is so amazing, I mean, you've been doing this work far longer than I have, but I've been doing it for 15 years now with a couple year break that I told you about earlier.
Yes.
And the thing that fascinates me, and one of the reasons I love it so much, Alison, is there's always so much more to learn. The more we learn, the more there is to discover.
Yes.
And as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, that's one of the things I admire so much about your work is just the depth and the breadth and the nuances that you can see that can make such a huge difference. I mean, so many of the things you've said today, if we even took one of those things away from this conversation, it can be transformative in what's possible. And as we continue to learn and grow and also have, I guess, the other thing I love so much is you teach us to have compassion for ourselves, for others, recognizing our humanity, like when you said, there's a reason you do all the things that you do.
Yeah.
So don't invalidate yourself.
Yeah. I have the same
Don't
message
invalidate.
too. Yeah.
And don't invalidate men, right? And like, I remember in one of our conversations, and I've heard this in your work when you're like, what if no one's misbehaving? What a concept, right? Like, what if no one's misbehaving?
What if everybody's all the people you know care about you that you get so upset with, what if they're always giving you their best interpretation of what they heard you say?
Hmm. Well, the story about the flies and the fly strips and this young man being upset that you didn't think you were listening to him. He was talking and you're like, oh my gosh, there's all these windows that have to be put down to stop the flies from coming in.
Well,
It's
good.
it's a perfect example of what you're just saying.
Yeah. Well, to his credit, um, after I got all the windows closed and sealed on the main floor and the upper floor, um, I came down and he was upset and he yelled at me again. And we
Oh no.
worked through that. And then I looked around and I said, does it seem calmer in here? And they looked around and the flies, there were so few flies. Like, like they were, at first he was like, no, it's the same. And then he's like, oh, it is different. That happened fast. But it's a lot like that with men. When we start interacting with them the way that they need to be interacted with, things calm down so quickly. They get easy. They get easy so quickly. Just a slight up, just a slight alteration. Like, one of the most famous ones is waiting for the well. Only ask a man a question that you're willing to wait for the answer for. And then after you answer the question, start counting to 30. And most men will speak up at around 18, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. But most women, if he doesn't respond before 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we rephrase the question. And then if he didn't answer that question, then we give him multiple choice. And then he's ticked off and we think he's an idiot for being ticked off. Why can't you answer a question? And not knowing we're completely aggravated, the committed state of mind that he committed to the first question and he's thinking. Now you changed the question. So he's got to give up his commitment to the first question, which he may not be able to give it up. He may really have liked that question. I'm not switching questions.
Right.
Right. And so he's not even considering the second question. And then you give him multiple choice and you realize you don't really care what he thinks in the first place. And that's what upsets him. And I mean, it's the number one thing women have told me has been the beginning of the transformation of their relationships is they ask a question and they start counting and they wait for the well. And if they have more to say, they'll start talking some more. Or if a man is talking to you and he stops talking, start counting for that pause. If he has more to say, then he'll start saying more and more. And when I started studying men in 1991, I would have bet my life on men being superficial. I would have bet my life on men having no clue about their feelings and emotions. I would have bet my life on that they were shut down and disconnected. And all I had to change was how long I would listen. And all of a sudden I'm getting access to their wisdom, their care, their sensitivity, their hurt, even how deeply hurt they've been. And just by listening longer. If someone wants to do one thing, listen longer and do it everywhere. Do it in your workplace. Listen longer instead of listening with the question, what do I know about that? What do I think they should do about that? And you interrupt what they're saying and tell them what they should do about it. And then you have everybody around you feeling disrespected. No, she won't listen to my ideas. I can't get more than 2 words out before she tell me what to do. And it's interesting because when we shift to being on the same team with men, they literally have team at the genetic level. They're so geared for team. Almost all men know their possibilities increase with the right people on their team, that what they'll be able to accomplish will far distance anything they could have done on their own. So anytime you shift to being on the same team with them, they feel it. They're so much more sensitive than we know and more sensitive than they think they are. And I mean, this is good news. This is really good news. It takes, and it's probably why what I do is so addictive to people, that you take one thing, you just do a little bit of it, and you're like, whoa, what happened there? And just do a little more, do a little more.
Yeah, I can remember a conversation you and I had years ago. This has been probably at least 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, on listening to men. And this one thing that you were just talking about
Yes.
not interrupting after you ask a question, and counting down
Mm-hmm.
and giving time for the answer, because I was doing exactly what you just described so frequently with my husband, rephrasing the question in a different way, giving him the multiple choice, and thinking, why can't he just answer this question? Right?
Yeah.
I'm married to a very intelligent man. He's a very smart man. He's out educated himself. And so I didn't understand. I didn't understand until this one concept that you taught me back then, taught a lot of other women. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's just amazing how that one thing has made a huge difference in our ability to communicate.
That's
And
awesome.
boy, it's hard for me sometimes not to do that impulse of jumping in.
Well,
Ooh.
I found something that helps with that.
Okay. Is
Um,
it duct tape? Is it duct tape?
well, there is the imaginary duct tape that's
Okay.
helps, and and you can get it with, like, you know, ladybugs on it now. You can do,
Right.
but um, so what I discovered, and this is one of the places that we start with in Lux, and why I want everybody to start there, is that there's how long we listen. And then there's what is the question at the top of our mind as we're listening. And and they're default ways of listening, they're survival based. And you can tell how someone's listening to you by what they interrupt you with. So if you're trying to tell them something and they're listening with the question in their head, what do I know about that? What do I know about that? And it's on a loop. What do I know about that? What do I know about that? What do I know about that? So basically, what you've said has just instigated a conversation with themselves.
Right.
When they think of something they know about that they think is really cool, they'll interrupt you and say, well, and they might, be more coy. Well, do you know that? Da, 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 da. They may put it that way, and they'll tell you this thing. Or they might be listening. Is that true for me? Is that true for me? Is that true for me? That's not true for me. I don't feel that way at all, right?
Right.
Interrupt with the conversation they're actually having. And if you switch it from what do I think about that? How do I feel about that? What do I want to say about that? What do I want to know about that? I. If you switch it to you ask the question and then you listen with what matters to him? What matters? So matters to him. And he could be, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. He could be talking about golf. And you can hear things about him that you didn't know for the last 20 years. You didn't know. You weren't listening long enough, and you weren't listening for what matters to him. You're just wondering, why is he talking about that stupid game again?
Right.
Right? And that's just one, like, you can consciously choose what matters to them, what's important to them, what do they care about. Another one, if you're ineffective with people, and this is what I was shifting into with this young man, was, okay, what's real for him? what's real for him? What's real for him? This is real for him. And I apologized for him experiencing being disrespected because that was real for him and he couldn't get past it. He could not get past that. He was so sure that he was disrespected. And I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disrespect you. And men believe so much in intent. They don't understand how they could have hurt a woman when they had no intention to hurt her. If they didn't intend to, it couldn't have happened. So it matters to them when we say, I didn't intend to do that. That wasn't my intention. I apologize for that. And oh, it wasn't? You didn't mean to disrespect me? Yeah, can we unpack how that happened? There's this thing called diffuse awareness. It's what
Right.
estrogen does to the brain. And his wife standing there smiling at him, right?
Right.
So if we listen differently, what's true for them? What's real for them? All of a sudden we become more effective because we're interacting with their world as they know it, instead of trying to get them to interact with our world as we know it. And people end up with more room to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so profound. That's so powerful. Like what a difference that made if we got out of our own conversations and really listened from that place of what's important to this person, what's really going on here. Because you're right, he could be talking, or anyone could be talking about something that maybe didn't seem that interesting or important or relevant to us,
Yes.
but there could be things there that we might understand or see that might be very important.
Yeah, and what matters also about it is if you're looking for someone to marry, if you're listening, what do I think about that? You're missing so many clues to who that person is and what they can and will provide. Because their actions are going to be based on what matters to them. They're going to act upon what matters to them and not upon what doesn't matter to them. So you got to find out what matters to them to know if you have any chance together. But if we're listening for, does he like me? Does he like me? Is he attracted to me? Is he attracted to me? What could I get from him? What could I get from him? You're going to miss all that. And it was one of the biggest surprises, Michelle. I'd probably been maybe a year into studying men, so 1992. And I realized how much men are trying to be understood. But as they're trying to tell us why they do what they do, we're like, that's ridiculous. Right? We don't think they're telling us the truth. We think they're giving a lame excuse for bad behavior when they're legitimately trying to have us understand their intent, the problem they were trying to solve, what they really care about. But we rarely see it. And later on, when mansplaining came along, I thought I was sick to my stomach the first time I heard it. Like, no, they're trying to be understood. If you're going to have mansplaining, you got to have women'splaining too, because there's a lot of splaining.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of splaining.
But what if we're all just trying to be seen and heard, and our constructs are preventing it, right? We're trying to interpret that person through a completely different way of thinking that starts with, do we have descended or undescended testicles? Which one? Because they're the same. I mean, they're the same, and then they drop or they don't, but they have the same materials, the same properties, but they dramatically affect our hormones, and our hormones shape our brains.
Yeah, and in listening to each other, that would be another question we could ask is, what is there to be understood here? What could I understand that I might not have understood before from what this person is expressing?
Yeah, and then those are questions you can even start asking. if you could have me understand anything about you, what would it be? And I promise I will take it seriously if you choose to answer my question. And it might be like Greg said to me, when you tell me something you need in anger, no matter how legitimate I think that need is, the anger forever pollutes that communication, and I can't do what you want me to do.
Wow. That's big.
So they will tell us. They will tell us if we're willing to listen. I gotta wrap up.
Yeah, I could talk to you for hours. I really appreciate it, Alison. Your work is wonderful. Your work is transformative. I encourage everyone, if you haven't experienced Alison's work, we've just touched on a few things here. There's so much. The depth and breadth of her work is like staggering. And Alison is always learning more, adding more to it. That's one of the most amazing things about doing this kind of work. And I can just tell you that Alison's work has been transformational for me in my relationship life, as a woman, as a single woman, as a married woman, and in my professional life. I've learned so much from Alison that has helped me in my relationship and with my clients. And so I'm just really grateful for you and who you are and how you show up in the world. I was telling Alison that the very first time I interviewed her years ago, I was very nervous and very excited, and Alison was just so lovely and so gracious to me and kind, and treated me with respect and dignity, even though she didn't really know who I was back then. And that's just, to me, that's a big compliment when people show up that way, because it's like you're living your work. You're not just teaching things that are principles or, these ideas. You're actually modeling your work. And I really admire and respect that about you as a person, in addition to all of your beautiful work. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Until next time.
Until next time. It's been lovely to connect. Thanks everyone for watching. The link to Alison's site will be in the notes here, and it's also here on the screen. And again, I encourage you to check out more of her work, or if you're hearing her for the first time, check it out, because it can be transformative for your love life and your life. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.